Apologist Live. I'm your host, Vocab Malone. I'm back from vacation, homie. And I kind of forget how to do this whole live thing and stuff, so I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But check this out. My name is Vocab Malone. I'm a Christian apologist. And the name of this show is Street Apologist Live. And I'm going to be having a special guest on tonight, Abu Kamer, because we've both been to the Bible Museum, which is the program's topic tonight, about how we went to the Bible Museum and loved it, and you will too. You should go too. So we're going to have a fun live stream. Going to show you some pictures, going to show you some video, going to talk about the Bible. And so this is the show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Abu Kamer was on and he just disappeared, so hopefully he comes back. We will find out. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been gone for a little bit. I've still been having content up on the channel, mainly the music side of things, just so there's something when I'm gone. And then I'm trying to get back in the swing of things as far as, live streaming and all that goes. We had one earlier, but the internet at the place I was at, the internet didn't work. And so what happened is I couldn't go live. I didn't have a backup way. Now, I went live on IG with my phone, but I mean the YouTube. So if you guys are wondering what happened to the Ruth Ford Bible study, that's what happened with it. Shout out to BK Apologist. Shout out to Mr. Phil Fox. Subscribe to both of their channels. And shout out to Gerard Perry and Nate 2D2 and the new SA crew. What's up, Samuel Johnson, Theology and Apologetics? How you doing, Elizabeth? And how you doing, Ellie? Elohim, it was good to meet you and your family. I got to meet her husband, and their wonderful babies in Ohio. So I got to actually meet some of you on the road. I'm at the Chandler Brothers. I'm at my man Brian in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Good people all along the road of life. So what were you doing today? Some of you heard about the Bible Museum. The Bible Museum is in Washington, D.C., and it's actually not called the Bible Museum. It's called the Museum of the Bible. A lot of people don't know it's there, but oh my goodness, it's the most epic thing. You've got to know it's there. You have to, I would say, go there before you go to any other museum in D.C. Really, honestly, before you even see anything else. That's how good it is. And by the way, if you enjoy content and me coming back and all that jazz, blah, 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 remember, we do have Super Chats. So feel free to please give to the Super Chat. It helps very much. I'll give you a shout out and try to look at your question and all that. So to those of you who haven't went to the Museum of the Bible, Abu and myself are going to do our best to try to school you on what it is. So, Abu, can you come in and let's join this conversation here. And let me see here. Yeah, I'll put you as guest one. And can you should be able to be heard. Do you have yourself muted, or is that on my end? Let's see. Yeah, I see. That's
yep, I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad you got that up there. It's hilarious.
Oh, I can always take it off.
It's just,
well, there was quite a bit of that at the Bible Museum.
Yeah, well, funny thing is, I saw it and you didn't. You know what I'm saying?
I got one thing.
You got one thing?
I got the mug.
I saw it in the gift shop. I saw it. I know exactly.
Yeah, they had those Ethiopian icons everywhere, so I got the mug.
I know exactly what you're talking about, actually. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Let me go to my Instagram here, and let me...
Yeah, there's my mug. My mug from the Bible Museum.
Oh, so you actually did buy it. Okay.
Oh, man, I had to get something, so I got that.
All right.
That's my mug, and I actually got some Earl Grey in there, you know?
Oh, really? Nice. Okay. Well, so here's what's funny. Before So I'm on my Instagram, as you can see. We are gonna talk about that. So let me just cover that up for a second here, before we show that. Boo, let's talk about how this went. So it's like late night. I'm in D.C. Technically, I was in Maryland. There's a place called National Harbor, and we're down there at National Harbor. And I get a call from you. And I'm like, well, it's a Boo. I better pick up, right? So I do. I pick up, and you're on the phone talking about I'm in DC as well. So
Yes.
we happen to be out of all the places, all the people in the world. You and I happen to be in DC at the same time. Didn't get to connect, but then I tell you I'm going to the Museum of the Bible tomorrow, and you're like, well, that we, and but you just went to the Museum of the Bible.
Yeah, we just left. We wound up going hours apart. For those who are listening, Vocab and myself, Vocab and his family, myself and my family, we missed each other by mere hours because I went at the end of the day, he went at the beginning of the next day. Man, and so yeah, we had just missed each other at the Bible Museum. Unfortunately, we couldn't reconcile our respective schedules, and our respective families. Sometimes moving family, it's like, as they say, like herding cats. So we couldn't reconcile our respective schedules. But yeah, we were at the Bible Museum almost at exactly the same time, hours apart, not even a full day apart.
True. Now, what I'm gonna do is, before I show some pictures and images, I'd like to hear your basic initial general overview of the Museum of the Bible, because my main message here is going to be to teach people, yes, about the Bible, from things we've learned there and all that, but also just to get people to want to go to this thing, make it a bucket list item. That's going to be my main message today. But you didn't start off nearly that excited about it. I'm going to mute myself for a second. Tell people about your experience at the Museum of the Bible before we show these pictures and video.
Sure. So the first thing I'll say is, if you go, set aside your whole day for it. We set aside 3 hours for it. We were there for 3 hours. It was nowhere near enough time. We went in there. We only got to see a fraction of it because we only had 3 hours. You need at least 8 hours. I imagine you might need more than that. But yeah, as you alluded to, when I went in there, I honestly didn't go in there super enthusiastic. I was, my expectations were somewhat low. I think I was, in my ignorance, perhaps I had some sort of a cheap stereotype in the back of my mind. I was imagining something like I hear that these young Earth creationists like theme parks out there somewhere in the country. So I wrongly imagined something like that, and but no. So I went in with somewhat low expectations. My daughter. I went in there with my daughter, with my wife and my daughter. My daughter was particularly interested in the was it on the second floor or the third floor? I'm sorry, the third floor. It's called the World of Jesus of Nazareth. They also, when we were there, they called it the Galilean Village, where they try to recreate what a village would look like in first century Galilee, and they have actors there playing the people from that time. And I have to say that at the time I found it kind of cheap, but my daughter loved it. And then, like, for me, it had sort of like a theme park atmosphere, so I wasn't very moved. But I remember when I went into their synagogue, because they have homes and all this other stuff to recreate the village, a great millstone and all that. Not a literal great millstone, not the group. They don't have great millstone out there, but they have all that. And I went in. They have a synagogue, and I went in there, and I didn't catch it on tape, but I got to see. They even have an actor unfurl a Torah scroll and rock back and forth and recite it or pretend to read it, and then roll it back up again and leave. And for some reason, when I saw the actor unfurl the Torah scroll, for some reason I found it more moving. Like, I liked the Galilee village even more. And then as we moved on up the stairs, when we got to the fourth floor and you get to the section on translating the Bible, that's when I was really moved. That's when it really Yeah, feel free, have a biscotti if you want. Enjoy a biscotti. The fourth floor really, really resonated with me. That's when I absolutely fell in love with the place. I was very, very impressed. I enjoyed their little, like, illumination section, and their section on the King James Bible. But the fourth floor section on translating the Bible was just, I mean, I really enjoyed it. Oh, by the way, I got the an Ethiopian icon of the Virgin Mary on my mug. What do you got there? A mermaid? Is that on your mug? But yeah, so I went in, the gist of it is, I went in not super, with low expectations, not feeling particularly impressed. But as it went on, it really won me over. and I came out of there thinking that that place is really amazing, and that I wish I had more time. And my family and I have been talking about trying to go back as soon as possible, if that helps.
Yes, it does help. And yeah, I do have a mermaid on the cup, and I don't even think she has a shirt on, bro. So it's pretty, so it's like it's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
Well,
yes,
anyways, so check this out. I think the reason you thought it was going to be cheap and all that is because you're anti-evangelical bias as a Roman Catholic. You could not help it.
I think that's fair. I'm honestly, I'm not even going to fight you on that. I think you are absolutely right. I went in there with a crude stereotype, and man, it was nothing like that. It was nothing like that.
So hopefully my people set you straight, bro.
Yo, definitely, definitely.
First of all. Second of all,
much more worldly and ecumenical than I thought.
Just because you said what you said about the Creation Museum in a veiled way, I'm going to upload some audio I have after a pastor friend of mine went and visited it. I'm going to upload it. I'm going to try to do it next week. And it's going to talk about...
Did you go to Ken Ham's thing or something like that?
He's going to talk about his experience at the Creation Museum outside of Cincinnati, which is actually in Kentucky. And I did go to the Creation Museum. Now, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to do a show on that one day. A more extensive show, kind of like this. And I've also been to the Ark. So I've been to the Creation Museum twice, and I've been to the Ark once. And I love them both. I think they're both amazing. And I think even a hardened Jesuit such as yourself would still appreciate certain aspects of it. So I encourage you not to totally write it off. It is no museum of the Bible, but I got to tell you, man, there's really I feel like there's nothing like the Museum of the Bible around, though. So that's like a high bar, in my opinion. You know
agreed,
what I'm saying?
Agreed.
You could spend, I think, 8 hours there.
Easily, because 3 hours I only saw a small fraction of it. I don't even think I got to see half of it. You know, like if you really want to like stop and look at the different exhibits and contemplate them, yeah, we didn't even come close to seeing everything within 3 hours. So yeah, 8 hours might not be enough.
You know, Abu, generally I'm impressed with your powers of observation. For example, just now I held up a cannoli. Or, I'm sorry, what am I saying? Someone in the live chat is quoting Godfather, so I just got distracted as somebody said, leave the leave the gun, take the cannoli, right? You know, famous line from Godfather or whatever. Maybe it was Godfather 2, I forget now. But anyways,
but it's a biscotti.
Yeah, famous line. But I held a biscotti up briefly, and you saw what it was right away and caught it and all that, which I was impressed with. And what my point by saying that is, usually I'm impressed with your powers of observation. But when it came to the Museum of the Bible, there's a lot of stuff you missed, and I thought that was funny because since I'm kind of dialoguing with the ortho bros and the orthosphere a little bit, and I took a vacation from it. Thank God, it was perfect timing for my soul with that. Like I took interest in anything they had relating to iconography and things like that at the museum. So I took pictures and images from that. And it's funny because later on you're like, I didn't catch that. I didn't see that. Wow, that's a lot of stuff there. So that was kind of funny. And Tony Tabano, a fellow Paisan, of course, my first homie who brings a super chat into the mix, he says, vocab having too much fun at museums and driving in hot rods with G-Con. And Tony Tabano, first of all, I got to tell you, that's a very accurate description of my vacation, actually. You're exactly right, brother. I was having too much fun driving hot rods with G-Con and going into museums. He's totally right. And so shout out to Tony Tabano. And thank you for the super chat. You're the first one of the night, hopefully not the last, because I'm trying to get back into this thing. But I did get to drive in G-Con's hot rod in St. Louis, and he was super cool to me and my family, and it was just a lot of fun. But now we're not talking about that. Maybe I'll get into that some other time too, because it's beautiful. Now we're talking about the Museum of the Bible in D.C., and since you mentioned it, I'm going to go to my IG, and I'm actually going to show the section you were talking about. Because you briefly mentioned, what did they call it again? The first century. What did they call it again? I forgot actually what they called it, bro.
What's this? What are you referring to?
Well, it's on the screen.
Oh, so, the village. Yeah, yeah. The village was called the world of Jesus of Nazareth. But when we got there, the tour, one of the employees, the staff or the guides. They called it the Galilee Village as well. But on the
Oh,
map,
really?
it's called the World of Jesus of Nazareth.
Okay, is that the okay? So I got it up on the screen. People, you guys should be able to see it. It's from my Instagram, so I didn't want to upload all the pictures, so I'm showing it now. You know what? Let me. You're not going to get the full justice by looking at this, okay? But I am trying to give you a snapshot to give you somewhat of an idea about this, okay? And that's my oldest, and he is at one of the scenes there. And if you look real close, now I can't even read it. Gergesa. I think it says Gergesa, but they had this little like mural that had elements of like the mural, but then it had elements of real elements, and it looked like you were like looking out over a body of water in Jerusalem. And I took a pano picture, and that's my son in front of it. Now you don't get the full pano in the little IG photo I uploaded, but it was so cool. Like everything they did there was just cool. It gave you a somewhat of a sense of being there, and I didn't really expect that element. Now, you said you didn't like it till you saw the guy unfurl the Torah scroll. I didn't get to see that, so I don't. That's kind of cool. You must have went on a. You must have went on a Sabbath day or something. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
but,
we did actually.
Oh, okay.
No,
Maybe
Thursday. No.
Oh, I was gonna say maybe that's it. Maybe they just do it on, But like this is a really cool thing. And it's beautiful the way they had it laid out, and I got to also interact with some of the actors. And so here are some of the actors, and I had a lot of fun with them. So like, I was with some of my uncles, and I told them, "Hey, let me get a picture with you and these actors." My uncles didn't really want to take any pictures; they were being good sports, though. So I lined them up beside the actors, and I was like, 3, 2, 1. And one of the actors was like, I was like, "Can you take a picture with me and my uncles?" And she was like,
They were like, we don't know how to work the camera.
Well, I asked if I could take it of them, but they were like, what's a picture? And I was like, oh,
nice.
I see what's going on. And so I was like, well, let me paint a picture of you, if that's okay. And using this device. And she was like, well, won't that take a long time? I was like, this device is able to paint a picture quickly. And she was like, well, won't that be expensive? I was like, I'll do it for free. It's 2 shekels, but for you, my dear, free, right? So I'm having this whole conversation, right? It's like the classic Middle Eastern guy, but for you, my friend, So I pulled one of those, being in the village and all. And so then I take the picture, and I'm like, 3, 2, 1. And she's like, I notice a lot of you count backwards. Why is that? And I was like, well, not only can I count backwards, I can walk backwards. And I was just being dumb at this point. But I started doing it. I said, this is called the moonwalk, right? And I like, oh, and I was like, and I was like, but let me tell you, I mean, if Yoda can talk backwards, then why can't I, right? And they were like, who is this Yoda that you speak of? I was like, oh, he's a warrior. And they were like, oh, really? I was like, but the thing is, he does speak in backward syntax, but he has a faulty view of the world. He thinks that matter is essentially a prison, because there's a part in Empire Strikes Back where Yoda says, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter, right? And I describe it. And then one of the actors, actually the lady on the right with the basket, she goes, oh, like the Gnostics. I was like, what? I was like, yeah, kind of like the Gnostics. I was like, who are these people? I was like, now that heresy hadn't fully developed at the time. Unless you're in the late 1st century, you had the kind of proto-Gnosticism as far as the way I understand it. I was like, but that's pretty good. I was like, yes, exactly. So this is a funny conversation I'm having with these actors, right? Anyways, I was having a lot of fun. I thought it was great. They were all good. And my uncle's like, well, yes, but you have a face mask on. I was like, no, that's his Joseph coat of many colors. He just puts on his face, and I don't know. It was fun. So we had a lot of fun with the actors as well. They were good sports, and they make it fun. They're there, and you can talk to them and have conversations. And I took some video. This is just on one level of the Museum of the Bible. The idea is to kind of give you a feel of the world Jesus lived in. And I didn't do it right. This is not a good shot of it, but this is actually.
I think is that one of the houses or the synagogue?
This is the synagogue. So I was making a joke, and I was saying, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to go in the synagogue. And I was like, oh, it's not very, it wasn't very popping that day, right? In the synagogue. But isn't it cool that it's like that? The way they had a synagogue. I mean, so that was your
Indeed.
favorite part.
Right there
That's
is where
it.
they unfurled the scroll. Yeah, they unfurled the scroll there. Looks like it's there. Oh, it's there. You got the scroll.
Oh yeah, but I didn't see a guy do it though.
Yeah, it was nice to see it. And he unfurls it, rocks back and forth, says a few things, and then he rolls it back up. It was I thought that was cool.
Does he say?
I totally did not expect that.
Does he say it in Hebrew?
It went so fast, and I was so far away, I wasn't certain. But it was still very cool, and I was trying to fumble to get my camera to catch it on tape, and I failed to do so.
Oh, it looks like a couple people are kind of confused what we were just talking about. So let me catch you up, like Brady D, for example. Shout out to you, and shout out to Sarah. It looks like she's been to the Museum of the Bible. It looks like, from what I could tell. So check this out. What we're not talking about being at a Renaissance fair, everyone. We're talking about one level at the Museum of the Bible. Which is 6 floors in total. It's the 3rd floor according to Abu. I forget the exact layout, although I got the map in my bag. I should probably grab it out.
Yeah, dig that.
One level has actors and is like a recreation using very artistic methods. Like some of it looks really real, using various methods to kind of immerse you in the world of the 1st century that Jesus was in. And I thought it was a cool way to do it. So you're like learning about the archaeology and geography of the Bible lands at the Museum of the Bible. So it makes sense. It's kind of learning about Bible lands, and it's like the context of the New Testament. And this particular one is in the synagogue, and they unfurl the Torah scroll, and there it is. I don't know where it's open to, but it'd be fascinating to look at that and see real quick. But let me go to the next one. So did you go to the room with the fake food?
Yes. I even shot a little video in there. Yeah, and it was of that woman that was in the middle of your picture.
Oh,
she
really?
was the one when we were in there. Yeah. She was in there talking about their meals and stuff like that.
Oh, so you got like a tour. It seems like you got a more... They're like
I guess the actors were a bit more active. I think they just get active and inactive at certain parts, you know?
Huh.
You know?
Well, that's cool, man. So what did they tell you? What kind of stuff did you get about the food and stuff?
I don't... Honestly, that was... unfortunately, forgive me, that was in the part where I was sort of... in my stage of not being super impressed, so I wasn't paying too close attention. But she was just talking about a typical meal and oil and fruits and stuff like that. And I think my wife and daughter paid far more attention than I did at that point. But I did catch a little video of her, and it was the woman, like I said, in the middle, with the face covered. I was thinking that what do you call it, a niqab? She was wearing her niqab, 1st century niqab.
No, that's when you're still in that Jesuit mindset. We had to break you out of that. Someone's going to use these clips, but I just don't care anymore. Once you go on vacation, your perspective changes. But this was cool. So my kids are fun. They sat down, like they were, eating or whatever. And when you walk in, some of it really looks real. I'm like, man, this
agreed.
They did a great job. It's very artistic. It's obvious a lot of time, thought, and energy went into this. I don't know how I skipped to this already, but maybe that's all I have from the 1st century thing. No, hold on, I got something. Oh, I know what I did. My bad. I want to still show the 1st century stuff. So there's.
Did you get to see the Great Millstone, or did you catch any footage of it or a picture of it?
That's hilarious. You're bringing that up. I think so. Let me show you. Let me see. Is that what you're talking about where they made the olives?
It was that giant. It was like a giant stone wheel.
Yeah,
and that's what it was. It was for grinding like grain. It was literally a millstone,
Yeah. It's just funny to hear. Yeah, I did. Hold on. It was great. Yeah. Let me see. Let me see. I think I've got it.
And it's interesting seeing how big it was, because it sort of puts in perspective, like biblical references to a man having a great millstone tied around his neck.
Yeah, I know it's real small on the screen. Actually, let me just fix this here. I'm going to go out of here. Hey, shout out to Brian Pinkard for the super chat. He says, glad you enjoyed yourself. We will have to actually meet up next time you are in the DMV. Let's definitely do that. Hey, Abu, I know this is dumb. What does DMV stand for? I actually forgot.
My wife knows. DMV is DC, Maryland, Virginia, I believe.
Okay, that totally makes sense now. I should have thought about that, but my brain's not 100%. I should have totally got that. Okay, that makes total sense. Okay, let me actually look here. Let's see. How do I do this? Okay, let's look at... I think I actually have that olive thing here. You know what I'm saying? I think it's right about... How do I skip? Okay. Oh, okay. Are you looking, Abu? Is it on the screen?
Yep, I can see. I saw G-Con there for a second, I think.
Yep. Okay, check it out. It's right here. You see it? This is the
Not
great
yes, no,
millstone.
yes, that's it right
Yeah.
there on the right. That is it. So
Yeah.
when the Bible talks about that being hung around a person's neck, ugh, it's the first century sleeping with the fishes kind of talk. It's serious. That is serious. Yeah.
I
It's very
was
impressive though. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there and I was talking about it, and I forgot what I was. I think I first said grapes, and I was talking to my son. He was like, "Dad, these are olives." I was like, "What?" Because I was like, I was like narrating, and I was talking about grapes, and it's where they smash the olives. It's not,
To make
so
the olive oil. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I was like, "What's wrong with me?" It's like, "Of course it is." Anyways, so
James Gandolfini briefly popped up there. So
yeah, yeah, that's
he was there too.
he was there too. He was there. Well, you mentioned sleeping with the fishes,
Exactly.
different thing, but still, it all works together. All right, so check this out. So we got to see the great millstone there that was on that room as well, and I think this map was there, and I was being dumb, of course. Speaking of James Gandolfini and all that, I pointed to the Sicilia on the map where it says the
There you
Roman
go.
Empire, because you see Sardinia. Yeah, I think it's where sardines come from, I guess, is the deal. Oh, it's kind of covered up with the little thing where
Yeah,
you can see the
Sicilia,
bottom.
yep, all the way at the bottom. As
Yeah.
they say, that it's the stone that the boot is kicking, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then they had a section in there about the Greco-Roman world. And so my son's a wrestler, right? And it was talking about Hellenization. And I was totally being immature because they had this like image that was of ancient Greeks wrestling in the nude, right? And so I was asking my son, like, "Hey, man, have you ever had to wrestle naked?" And so I zoomed in on it. Look,
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't
See,
help it.
meanwhile, when I was looking at that, I was thinking, oh, they quoted Maccabees. And,
That guy
but not
wasn't.
everybody's noticing they quote Maccabees. Other people are looking at as they say in Yiddish, the Schmeckies, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought that was cool that they had like that little section about Hellenization. And
Definitely.
when I looked at the picture, I was like, oh, they're really showing these like ancient Greek images of these guys in the nude. And it's weird. They were not all equally. They weren't all equally endowed. They clearly drew them a diverse. Sorry. But it was just funny. I was messing with my friend, but I like. There's people on there commenting on my Instagram. That's so cool. Anyways, they're probably talking about another part of it, but that's just the immature side of me coming out. This is what you'll get if you come with me to the Museum of the Bible. You'll get some of this stuff, but you're also going to get this other kind of stuff. And then when you walk out of it, they had this little thing with Abraham that I thought was cool about being a father of all people, and they quoted, "Through your family, all families will be blessed." And they had this thing that kind of really set it in perspective. In Genesis, God established an everlasting covenant, an unbreakable promise with a man named Abram. God instructs him to leave his homeland and go to a foreign land. Along the way, God promises the elderly, childless Abram that he will have descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and that through his family all people will be blessed. God renames him Abraham, meaning multitude of nations. Hoping against hope, he believed that he would become the father of many nations, according to what was said. So numerous shall your descendants be. Romans 4:18. Good stuff. I heard some people complaining that the museum didn't have enough Jesus, but I feel like it's a museum
Can
of the
we say
Bible.
something real quick about that?
Yeah.
About Genesis saying that he's going to be a father of many nations. This is something that I find amazing about that, right? Because this is something that may speak to potentially to the inspiration of the Bible. Think about when Genesis was first penned, right? And think about the number of people that looked to Abraham as the founder of their faith, right? At the time, if you think about it, in the scheme of the world as a whole, it's somewhat unimpressive at the time that Genesis was written, right? It's what you could say. It's just this group of Bronze Age, you know, people living in West Asia, living in Palestine, right? But now when we look back with a few millennia worth of hindsight, we can say that now it's half the world's population looks to Abraham as like the founder of their faith, whether you agree with all of them or not. And so in a sense, that statement has become true, Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like at the time it was penned, it may not, like if you tried to show this to someone who didn't believe in an Abrahamic faith, it might not have seemed very impressive. Like he's the father of many nations, but he's only the father of your little, group here in Palestine, right? That's, it would be easy to look down your nose at that, but look where that went. It comes off as quite prophetic, even from a very skeptical perspective, that this faith has inspired You know, the faith of Abraham has inspired half the world's population at a time when there's 7 billion people on the planet. I find that
Yeah.
impressive. I'm sorry for the segue, but
Oh, I don't mind at all. Just buy some time to look through the comments, which I greatly appreciate. So no sweat with that. And check this out. This is Samuel Johnson, Theology and Apologetics, says the historicity of the Bible was manifest in that museum. Now, I like whoever you are, Samuel. I don't know if we've met or talked before, but I like that you're saying that, because I felt some people were like hating on me, like, oh, I'm not going to go to that museum. It doesn't have enough Jesus there. I understand it's a museum of the Bible. I know Jesus is a central character, and it's funny because there's articles online talking about, oh, the place is skewed and slanted towards Christian evangelicals. They call the Old Testament, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I feel like it was kind of a right balance to where, because I want everyone to get in there, right? And I think that's a good goal to have. But at the same time, I don't feel like they sold out at all. I felt like the history of the Bible was manifest in that museum. It's like a giant apologetic store. And I thought it was excellent. So I'm glad you appreciate that. He talked about manuscript transmission and rabbinic literature. And then check this out. He might be after a man after your own heart. Let me find this question. Go. He definitely will not be my last time at the museum, so he wants to go back too. So see, he knows what's up. And then check this out. I posted my picture at the museum recently as well. Never had the opportunity to visit the world of Nazareth. Was encapsulated with the fourth floor, and that's where you.
Yes, that's where I fell in love with that place as well. I'd say this museum is going to have something for everybody. You know,
yeah,
they definitely had stuff that really blew me away, that really captured my heart, that really, man, that you know, it was amazing. And the fourth floor was that for me. The translation section and so on.
Yeah. All right, well, let's look at.
By the way, can I say one thing real quick? You said that people, complain that it has an evangelical slant. That was precisely the assumption and stereotype I went in, and it is false. It's not some sort of, strictly evangelical theme park or something like that. It's definitely, it runs across the spectrum. They try to take into account the diverse world of people who look to the Bible, and they also, I mean, as I said already, they really do. They succeed at having something for everyone. So it's definitely not that. And by the way, if I recall correctly, on the third floor, the Old Testament section was literally called the Hebrew Bible section.
That's what I thought.
Unfortunately, I didn't go through there. I really wanted to, but I ran out of time and didn't go. But yeah, it was called the Hebrew Bible, not the Old Testament.
So I want to get to that, but first I want to show people a section that, so we dealt with that third floor. But maybe a perception of why some people might think that. So when you first go in, and see, to me, it made total sense. I was like, I totally get this. The first floor is about the impact. I believe it's the first floor. I'm getting confused. What's what? Well, was that the second floor?
I think
okay.
Where you see that, yeah. That's
you come in on the
floor.
first floor. Okay, sorry. The kind of first level of mainly exhibits, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because the first floor is mainly
precisely.
You go and this and that. The second floor is about the impact of the Bible upon America. And if you're there in Washington, D.C., like you're there with the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, and Thomas Jefferson's and the White House and the Capitol. It made total sense that was, to me, it made total sense that was the kind of first thing you would go into. Now, you can go in any order you want. You don't have to go there first. But I did spend some time there, so I want to show some people some stuff from that because I liked that section as well. So
yeah,
I'm okay with starting off that way. So they got my main man John Brown here, which I got a lot of great people who support what we do in this ministry, and they buy me books about John Brown. And so there you got John Brown, and this picture doesn't quite show it, but these are like these big murals, and I just thought everything was so artistic and creative. Like I love the vibe of it. It looked like true to the era. And then they had Frederick Douglass next to him, and they talked about the impact upon the Bible upon the abolitionists, for example. That was kind of part of the reason that was going on there. And then they had some other stuff that I'll show as well. Angela Grimke, and I think you got William Ward Garrison. Who was the other one? I forget. Everyone was on there, but they had this thing. It was the emphasis was "Thou shalt love thy neighbor," and the reason why that matters is because, like for John Brown, who's really the most prominent abolitionist, I think, as far as as far as what he did and whatever, that was his driving force. The verse he constantly quoted. He quoted the Bible a lot, but that was key to him. And they talked about Frederick Douglass, and they shared some from his writings, and I thought that was good. good. Like, let me see in a little video. I'm trying to show everybody, and they even got Garnett, who he was pretty radical for his day. You know, a man of no compromise, the famous abolitionist who should be known as well. And I'm just showing how I like the way they showed that the impact of the scripture upon people. There's Uncle Tom's Cabin there as well. They showed that had on abolitionists and whatnot. There's the Liberator. That's William Lord Garrison's paper. And there's a little sound. I'm doing like a little stupid narration. So if you want to check that out and get a better sense, because some of you are like, I can't see this. It's on my Instagram. That's where I'm looking at these from. So just go Instagram.com/Vocamo, and you can look at this, and you don't even have to follow me, although you should, and you can see these because I posted all this all up here for everyone to see because I'm trying to get people to go. And then more on Douglas, which I thought was helpful, and they even have Charles Hodge, right, and which I appreciated.
Elsewhere on the floor, they even had a book by Bartolome de las Casas, which I found really
because he was defending better treatment for the Native Americans.
And what's interesting is that he did it from a biblical perspective, because one of his opponents, a person who was saying that it's perfectly permissible, there was a Spanish theologian named Gine Sepulveda, who was arguing that it was permissible to basically brutalize non-Christians and stuff like that, and then the natives who were non-Christians. And his argument was based on a combination of Aristotle and the Old Testament, like some of the more brutal war passages in the Old Testament. And so Bartolome de las Casas, when he writes his book disagreeing with him, he makes the point that, Aristotle's a brilliant man, but he didn't know the gospel. And so too, when you look at the Old Testament alone, you're going to miss some of the message of the gospel. And so he gets into what the New Testament commands and, about love and charity. So even Bartolome de las Casas his defense of Native Americans was inspired by the New Testament.
That's good. I didn't know actually about that. And one thing I did like, though, because you basically just mentioned how they kind of showed two sides, is there's Richard Allen, a very important figure I've talked about on this channel before. And then they talk about the First Great Awakening there. One thing I liked about it is they did show both sides. So they showed not only the abolitionists and whatnot, but they also showed how basically pro-slavers tried to also utilize the Bible in their favor. And I thought it was helpful. So a brief examination of scripture testimony on the institution of slavery. Thornton Stringfellow, 1850, a Baptist pastor in Virginia. And he tried to say, look, there's precedents of the Old Testament. And he got into the curse of Ham stuff. And that's the way he interpreted the Bible, was in that way. But he wasn't the only one as well. There was other people that they talked about as well, and who were pro-slave and tried to utilize the Bible as well. So anyways, my point is that it had all kinds of things in the Bible that was especially prominent in a lot of those discussions, and I think that's important. The Selling of Joseph, a Memorial by Samuel Sewall, the first anti-slavery tract published in New England. He utilized biblical argumentation. So they have a leaf from there, and they talk about other things. And it's cool. They also have the Bible's impact, especially in the black church. And so they have a little section where you can listen to music, go down Moses Telling Them Out, and you click the button, and then it'll go to a different song, and a little image comes up. It's just cool. There's like all this stuff all over. There's interactive stuff there. You can see me pushing the button. And it's just, this museum literally has something about everything, and it shows a broad, it's not just like information about the Bible, although there's kind of more academic exhibits, as we've kind of mentioned. It also shows the broader impact that I think is really important. And so that's kind of
the way it's influenced the world. Yeah. Yes. That was moving. Yeah.
And I thought it makes sense that it started off with an American context. There they talk about in relationship to kind of justice issues and a number of other things. So obviously MLK comes into play, and they have a picture of this really nice artwork of MLK, and and it was with Billy Graham as well. He's over here; you can't really see him, and that part is cool. And they talk about the Bible's relevance with that, and then they have all this literature and social gospel issues. And then let me show one other thing from the first floor in regards to the impact of the Bible upon America.
Second floor.
Second floor. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
This part was cool. Did you see it? This part was like a dig lot which was English on one side, and I think the first translation into a Native American tongue on the other side. Did you see that little section where they had the translations for Native Americans by missionaries and during that day? That I thought was pretty cool, and it was Wampanoag, Wampanoag, and so that was important. And then they have some other examples of that translated by John Eliot. He's pretty famous. They talk about, of course, the Great Awakening. So you probably didn't spend as much time here, but I got excited because I saw people like Whitfield and Edwards. And so, went to see my Reformed brothers. I'm like, oh, let me look at this section. But of course, and Phyllis Wheatley, who was also Reformed and wrote a eulogy poem when George Whitfield died, because a lot of folks felt that way that she felt. And George Whitfield marks the new birth. And, Phyllis Wheatley's poem there, just some beautiful stuff. And there's Sinners in the Hands of the Angel of God by Edwards right there. So just a lot of, there's so much there that show the Bible's broader influence. And they had all these movies all over, too. My kids, they like to watch those. I didn't watch many of the little films, but there's literally films all over, and they are all very
My daughter sat down and watched them, and at a time when I was ready to keep it moving.
My kids seem to really like them. There's George Whitfield's field pulpit, because congregations wouldn't have them, so they put him out there in the field, and they were impressed by how loud he could go. And he had his classical field pulpit. He would just set up in the middle of wherever and start preaching. It's quite amazing, and. Yeah, that was cool. I when I had to go get my kids to say, hey, come on, kids, I would see the films they were watching, and they were all very well done. Like, they were kind of fast-paced and had like actors and good production, and they would show clips. So it was like good stuff. I mean, it kept the kids engaged. And there's Thomas Jefferson's Bible, as they call it, which, he just has the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, that where, it's a kind of non-supernaturalistic work, but they had that as well. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, did you catch what it says on the cover? What's it say there on the cover of his Bible? Because I know on the first page it says something. It says something about not offending Native Americans with superstition or something like that. I forget. Yeah, are you able to make that out? I don't know if it's the same thing.
I can't see it. It says
okay, no problem. I'll look it up later. I'm afraid to step away from my window. I might lose the call, but yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Supreme Being. No, I can't tell right there.
Oh, no, it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. Okay, so now they showed the Bible's impact in other ways as well, and I think you missed this.
I did, the science stuff, definitely.
Yeah, they had the science stuff. It was a smaller section, but they had a good reproduction of George Washington Carver, and so, I had to get a picture in front of George Washington Carver, and there he is. And then, you know who those guys are, right?
Isaac Newton and Galileo, I assume?
Yeah, I thought you would know those. I thought the art was pretty good. And then they had this list.
Very much so. Those are very impressive statues, to be honest.
I agree. Well, you're Catholic, so we know you love statues, so it's not a big deal for you to say that.
Hey, anyone who's been to one of these secular wax museums knows that most of this country likes statues.
yeah. Is that what you guys tell each other? And then they had a section here where they have like biblical names. And this one was kind of funny because I never noticed. My nephew, he's pointing to his mom's name. But it's funny, if you look where his arm is, it covers up one of the names. But it looks like it says, if you look at it where it's covered up, because it looks like it could be a B, it looks like one of the biblical names included is badass. Do you guys see that? You don't see it, do you?
No, I definitely see it. I see.
Sorry. I thought it was
like we're back to the A team. Like, what does BA from BA Baracus stand for? Like, don't worry about
bad attitude, man. Bad attitude.
Oh, bad attitude.
Yeah.
Was that what it is?
That was the official.
Different in the 80s.
That was the official explanation, but I think there was kind of like an unspoken acknowledgement of that. Then this is cool. Then they had here, I know you're into that too. This is cool too. They have a section where they had people who in prison who the Bible had changed their life. And so you step into a little prison cell and has these little stories about these individuals hanging up. And I thought that was so cool. Like, the Bible has transformed these people's lives. And I'm like, again, this is showing the power of Scripture in a very practical way. And it's just, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't have thought to include something like that. I thought that was
Agreed.
cool.
Agreed. I was thinking the same thing, that I wouldn't have thought to do that, but once you see it done, you're like, this is a great idea.
Yeah, go into jail, and of
So
course,
important.
my favorite guy up there is John Montana. He's, you know what I'm saying, and I thought it was cool. So there's that, and then here's a section you might like about. I think this had to do with the God Bearer title, didn't it? Yeah, Mother of God.
The Theotokos, yep.
So,
or as James White says, the Theotokos. The Theotokos.
now, do you think, like, honestly, I'm still putting this all together. Was the idea of the reason why they had this to show biblical interpretations influence upon art? Was that the idea there?
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, it's yeah.
Like, I didn't take it just as an endorsement. I said there's
No,
Madonna and Child.
of course not. Well, the collection is so diverse; it would be impossible to say that the people who put it together endorse everything that appears. I mean, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I took it as legitimate. Like, let's understand whether you agree or not about biblical interpretations, because someone might say, well, that's not really the Bible, because I mean, the way they're viewing it, I understand that. I'm just saying understandings of the Bible, but in some way the Bible's impact upon various aspects of culture, and one of them was art. And so I understood. And they even had some modern art. I don't know if you saw that. There's a little section where they had some that was more modern. So that was an example. I didn't take a bunch of those.
You know, there's an interesting thing about that thing with about the Marian stuff. You remember earlier I was talking about thinking about what Genesis says about Abraham and trying to imagine at the time it was penned and how it might not seem that impressive, but now with the hindsight of a few millennia, now it seems very impressive. It's, it seems prophetic even to a mind that wouldn't naturally accept the Bible as inspired. I think we have a similar phenomenon going on with Luke 1, where we have the situation where Luke 1 quotes Mary as saying, all generations will call me blessed. And like, if you imagine hearing her say that in the first century, if someone was cynical and hostile, they could sneer at that and say, this Jewish peasant girl, she's claiming all generations are going to call her blessed. But now with, 2,000 years of hindsight, it's an amazing statement. It seems to have incredible amounts of corroboration. You know what I mean? When you think about the way the story of Mary from the Bible has inspired artistic minds and literary minds, across the centuries.
Well, yeah, I gotta make sure we're not doing Catholic answers or anything like that.
Sorry, forgive me. But that's why I connected it with the Abraham thing. It's an interesting thought. Shout
out to Michelle Turner, fellow Columbus, Ohio native. Shout out to Orthodox some more.
He's there? Yeah. Shout out to Orthodox Moore and to Michelle Turner. Forgive me.
Yes, I watched this very interesting video today. And shout out to Miss Kitty. Miss Kitty, I can see your comments. It's just I'm not doing everything, just certain things. But shout out to you nonetheless. Okay, so then this was, I think, on the same floor, if I'm not mistaken. They were giving like a demonstration of how a printing press worked. Did you see that?
Wow. I did not see that. See, you got to see one reenactment, and I got to see another. Yeah, I did not see this.
Like, so if you look at the printing press...
My wife saw it.
Where it says Gutenberg in yellow, and it has like the thing coming down. If you look at it, everybody...
By the way, the plates outside at the entrance, aren't those giant replicas of plates used for the Gutenberg Bible?
Yeah, I believe they are. Everything was so cool and artistic. Like, they incorporated a lot of biblical elements like into like the design of the place, you know what I'm saying? It was cool. So here they were actually given like a demonstration. Like, if you look in the middle, those people dressed up, they're not like reproductions, those are actual people. So they're like taking it and they're showing you how it works and they're explaining it as they go. And I think there was 2 or 3 of them, and then they would like kind of make these pages and they would hang them up and like dry, and then they would give them to people. So like my son got a leaf that they printed out. It was just cool, man. I'm like, man, there's so much going on.
My envy has been awoken. I'm sorry I didn't see that.
Well, that's one of the, isn't that one of the 7?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I certainly, but nonetheless, my admiration. How about that? My admiration.
I know what you've got to do tomorrow.
Yes,
all right.
Yes.
So then it gets into different things, which we're going to transition into in regards to the Bible, into kind of Christianity and, I don't know, non-Western parts of the world. And so here you see attacks in the Middle East, and you see basically burn up Bibles. And it says present day, as ISIS invaded regions in Syria and Iraq, it targeted and destroyed religious communities. In February 2015, ISIS attacked more than 30 Christian villages in the Syrian province of al-Hasaka. And that's kind of a specialist area of yours, Abu. So do you want to talk a little bit about that broader thing there briefly while I go to the next pictures?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I have a lot to say on it, not because try to resist the urge to take us too far from this, but yeah, I don't know. It's and also it's a bit of a bummer, but yes, indeed, the Christian population was already dwindling in much of the Middle East, and in two great enclaves for Christians in the Middle East were Syria and Iraq, and both of them, in part due to outside activity, let's say outside foreign policy, have basically helped uh, speed up the process of the disappearance of these ancient Christian communities, which were in Iraq and Syria. Very sad.
Yeah, it's a sad, it's a tragic, tragic reality. But again, this is what's cool about the Museum of the Bible. They're not just limiting it to kind of like, here's this. Like they're getting to practical matters of like modern day persecution. And then like this reproduction of like these burn up Bibles and stuff. Like I don't know. I don't see how any Christian could go here and like be bothered by anything and just not be in love with this place. Honestly,
Or I'd put it this way: not find something to fall in love with. You know,
seriously, yeah. I
like I'm
mean,
sure there's lots of things that any particular individual might not be moved by, but there's lots there that, I mean, it's so diverse. There's so much to see. There's something for everyone. That definitely someone's going to find, if they look long enough, they're going to find something that's going to knock them over. It's going to cause them to swoon and really fall in
yeah.
love with the place.
Seriously. It's okay, Miss Kitty. You don't have to apologize. And Qatisha Cobbin, this is from a while ago, but I appreciate. She says, interesting fact: the founders wouldn't have went to war with England if it weren't for pastors. She's probably talking about the Black Robe Regiment and things like that. Shout out to another bodega lady, Shotty Mills in the house, and Marilyn Murphy as well. We got some great people in here. All right, so now let's go on to a sort of a different section. And this is
Look,
where
you see Lalibela there on the bottom left. You want to talk about a great achievement in Christian architecture. It's that.
well, seriously, I mean, you can't really see it just in these pictures, but can you explain the way this like Ethiopian church is modeled? I'm going to read one little thing on it. Maybe you can talk about it. The
Yeah.
Church
So
of St. George in Lalibela, Ethiopia, is cruciform in plan, a symbol of the crucifixion of Jesus. Created in AD 1200, St. George is one of 11 extraordinary rock-hewn cave churches in the mountains of Ethiopia. At a time when pilgrimages of Jerusalem were being stopped by Islamic conquest, Ethiopia's King Lalibela created this sacred precinct as a new Jerusalem, a designation for spiritual journey. I actually didn't. You know what's funny, Boo? I wasn't able to actually read everything because I have a problem when I go to a museum I like sometimes where I try to read everything, right? And then I never get through everything. So I had it in my mind what I was going to do partially is I'm going to take pictures of a lot of stuff and read it later. So I actually didn't get to read this. I kind of just looked at the display and said, oh, I'm going to read that. And I actually didn't know a lot of what I just read. I knew about the church and stuff, but that's cool. But go ahead, your turn.
so the thing about Lalibela, including that church that you see there in the pictures, so as I said, it was hewn out of rock. You have an entire church built from a single block of rock. Basically, they were standing on top of something akin to a mountain or a cliff, and they
Mm-hmm.
dug downwards. They dug a huge trench around, let's say, a rectangular block of stone, and then they dug into it and carved out windows and doors and rooms, and they basically carved an entire church out of a single massive block of stone, or basically out of like a mountain or a cliff,
I mean, it's absolutely amazing. They
Yeah, a
show a picture
monolithic
there.
work of architecture. It's incredible.
They show a picture there of pilgrims visiting the church, and the way they get in there is through a long processional ramp. And it's just a fascinating thing. And I guess, again, I'm trying to tie this in for everybody. I think the idea here is what the Museum of the Bible is the Bible's impact on churches and architecture. You know what I'm saying? I
And
mean,
it's an important field. I mean, it's Christian architecture. I feel like, well, a lot of people don't think about it, or forgive me. I'll say I wish more people thought about it, because the Bible and Christianity in general has inspired amazing architecture over the centuries. Before I became a Christian, when I was still an atheist, I used to go to St. John the Divine, that giant Anglican, it's Episcopalian
Hmm.
cathedral, not too far from where you met GMS. It's like three
Yeah,
blocks from there.
you told me it's kind of close to Morningside Park in Harlem, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
right by there. It's like 3 blocks away and 2 blocks away, and it is an amazing place. And it's just one small example. But as I was saying, when I was an atheist, I used to go there because even then, even when I didn't even believe in God, much less a Christian faith, I was very much inspired by how beautiful that place is. And I think that's one small example of the beauty that has been created within Christian architecture over the span of many centuries.
I
You know,
agree, and I like about the Museum of the Bible that they're not just including things from sort of the Western tradition and Western world.
Mm,
I appreciated that as well.
exactly. Lalibela is something that a lot of people might not know about, and it is something to be very impressed by.
Exactly. Chichi Rodriguez, shout out to you, says, agreed, love the place, learn a lot every time I've gone. 4 times already. Nice.
Wow.
So we're with you on that. And then they have a little like plastic. I don't know how to describe the art here, but it looks
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Like,
so this is sort of like a almost like a topographical map, a 3D map showing what this like cliff face or mountain looks like and how they've carved. This is what they've carved out of it. This is sort of a replica of that area, the area around Lalibela, which is
yeah,
a little bit south of Aksum
how
in northern
cool is
Ethiopia.
that? Because I guess it's the closest thing that you could do. I guess the only thing that would make it better is if this little tiny miniature one was like actually rock or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was
But you
good.
know what's funny about that you bring that up?
It'd
If
be difficult.
I exactly, it would be too difficult to do the miniature, and yet
Yeah,
these people
yeah,
did
yeah.
it with literal buildings.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I thought you were gonna say that. Then they also get into the cathedrals, and again, I've got my plenty of problems with elements of Orthodox theology, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate beauty. Here
Hmm.
we have a Russian Orthodox 5 dome plan, Saint Sophia in Russia, with its distinctive. How do you say those cupolas?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah,
Cupolas was built
hmm
around 1570.
dome. Yeah.
In Russian Orthodox architecture, the significance of the number and shape of the domes is a matter of debate. But in the popular imagination, the dome suggests burning candles. Oh, that makes sense. I didn't know that. And their number signifies figures from the Bible. 1 tower symbolizes Jesus, 3 towers the Trinity, and 5 towers Jesus and the 4 evangelists. And they have actually a little miniature layout of that as well. Did you see that? Are you seeing the picture? Did you see it?
Yeah, yeah, I see
I
it now, and yeah, I did see that, and it's fascinating.
I almost feel
It
like it was like ice cream cones or something.
Well, they are beautiful. The Russian Orthodox onion dome churches. I mean, I don't think this really does it justice because it doesn't capture like the color of it. But
Right.
some of those are very impressive as well.
Yeah.
Like Christian architecture is amazing, and it's very diverse, and it's textured and colorful, and just
Hmm.
it's very inspiring as well.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, what's interesting as a little bit of interesting bit of history. Once you get outside of Mecca and Medina, right? What would be one of the most famous mosques in the world? I
Hagia
think it would be,
Sophia.
yeah, the Hagia Sophia, which is itself a former church. This one of the most famous mosques in the world outside of Mecca and Medina is itself an example of awe-inspiring Christian architecture. There's like these late ancient or early medieval testimonies where people said they would go there and they felt like they were literally gaining some sort of access into heaven, getting an insight into what heaven is like, hearing the choirs songs and chants reverberate through the domes and stuff like that.
Oh, are you talking about when the Russians went all over supposedly to find the one true religion, and then when they experienced the Orthodox faith, supposedly they said we didn't know whether we were heaven on earth, and that's why they converted partially, I guess, instead of to Islam. Have you heard this story?
I've heard stories like that, but I think there were
Yeah.
other writers that said stuff like that as well. That apparently, like hearing the chants, or the recitation of the Bible within the Hagia Sophia it was something akin to that. That it created this sort of experience where, you sort of started to lose a sense of where the world ends and heaven begins.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'm a little skeptical.
All right.
But it starts sounding like some of my hyper Pentecostal friends I knew back in my charismatic days. But which is interesting because I don't know if you know, there's a decent amount of Pentecostals who are apparently friendly and even converting to forms of Orthodoxy because there's a strange level of connection they have because of the mystical element of the Christian experience, which I find fascinating discussion. But nonetheless, continuing on here, they get into not just architecture but art, and they only give a few examples. But there's many more that could be given from comic books, Captain Atom and Green Lantern, and I thought that was interesting, so I just took quick snapshots of that. You know, the impact of the Bible on that. And then this was so cool, man. My
Yes,
son
I
got
agree.
on this,
I
where you
agree.
can like, it's called micro, like you can put the 10 Commandments on a shirt that's like a 3D image and stuff. So did you see
Or an
this?
Ethiopian icon. My daughter was playing with that, and she was putting one of these Ethiopian icons on the shirt. Yeah, it was very impressive.
So yeah, your children put icons. My children put the 10 Commandments. Yeah, you know.
It's a diverse place for a diverse spectrum of families. We'll put it that way.
take your pick, right? No, but I have another thing where he's putting on like Gutenberg Bible images.
There you go.
But speaking of that, they did have the Bible's impact upon fashion, and they show these icons on these high fashion, and they actually showed a whole winter fall collection that apparently was influenced by icons. Did you see this?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And there's been a couple of shows like that. You know, I think one of these recent galas in New York did the same thing. You know, where they sort of now, of course, some of it turned out to be irreverent and sacrilegious, but nonetheless, there are these sort of parties and fashion shows where where the theme is religious art, iconography, etc.
No doubt, no doubt. And they had this, apparently, the Dolce & Gabbana had this thing called the Byzantine Collection. The dress on the one-ray before you is from the 2013 Dolce & Gabbana ready-to-wear autumn-winter collection. The garments evoke the splendid Byzantine-style mosaics that decorate Norman cathedrals in Sicily. Biblical characters, kings, and angels from the mosaics are artfully reproduced with intricate print patterns, pastelwells, and sequins. Hold on. What is this Norman cathedrals in Sicily? What specific? I don't even know. What
the Normans were the ones who helped with the conquest of Sicily, taking it back from the Muslims. And that in itself is a fascinating subject because you get into these situations where the Sicilians are sort of transitioning from like the Arabic script back to the Latin script under the influence of the Normans. It's a whole fascinating history there. You know,
the Normans is it kind of like, isn't that French?
That's my understanding. Yeah, and they came down and they were part of the process of sort of a sort of reconquest of Sicily. And
I didn't know that. Do you know about when that happened?
I think it was 12th century. I don't know much about it, but the only reason I know it's somewhere around 12th century because I got to see a document that was written by a rabbi that was still living in Sicily, like in the 12th century, and he was writing to a bishop. He's still writing like in Arabic, you know?
Oh, really?
Like, and it was after the Norman conquest. So I think it's 12th century. I could be wrong about that.
So there's a whole thing I could study about the Norman reconquest of Sicily. Basically, that would be them kicking out mainly the Moors?
Yeah, basically removing the Muslim presence there, you know? And it's fascinating because then they themselves went through this process of, of struggling with not only religion but also with language. Like there was a part where even the Normans were like writing to people in Arabic because so many people were using Arabic at the time, you know.
Oh, I have a question.
And even when speaking Italian, they were writing Italian in the Arabic script.
I have a question. Do you think that the Sicilians were even kicking out the Orthodox Moors?
I hope not, because we're big fans of Orthodox.
Oh, okay.
We know at least one, right?
Yeah. So then there's a section where they really got into ancient Near Eastern stuff. Did you catch that?
Unfortunately, I didn't. I didn't. So once I saw this, I was like, "Oh man, I want to see what this is."
You missed bro.
I know. I missed quite a bit. Like I also missed the entire Hebrew Bible section, which broke my heart.
So I kind of skipped that because the line was actually long to go in there. So I
shame on both of us.
But at least I got to see the A&E stuff. So this is cool. Like what they show, like translation of a cuneiform tablet cuneiform. The 7th year in the month of Kislev, the king of Akkad levied his troop, went to Hatim, and encamped opposite the city of Judah. And the month of Adar, on the 2nd day, he seized the city, defeated the king, and appointed a king of his own choice in its midst. He took its extensive tribute and returned to Babylon. So they have examples of A&E stuff corroborating, biblical accounts. And then you know about these, right? These
Of course.
silver amulets, the oldest example of the Bible we have. May Yahweh bless you and protect you. May Yahweh make his face shine. Ketef Enam, lines 14 through 17. You want to comment on these silver amulets, the old Leviticus text there?
No, I mean, it's just, I don't know what to say except it's just that it's amazing, and that, yeah, we have these very, very old examples of people writing, some biblical Hebrew down, so it's always awe-inspiring.
It seems they would wear it around their neck.
I suppose so. Or it may have been also used in phylacteries, because that still happens amongst Jews to this day, and it's alluded to in the New Testament. It says the Pharisees try to wear the biggest phylacteries or something to that effect. What those phylacteries were in the Torah, it talks about binding the word of God to your arm or your hand or your head, between your eyes, etc. And there were Jews from antiquity and to this day who took that very literally. They would put literal text, biblical Hebrew text, inside physical objects, and then bind them to their arm and in between their eyes, on their foreheads.
Yeah, what's pretty fascinating about it, of course, is what you've got is Yahweh. You got the divine name in there, YHWH. And then I got another example here, lines 5 through 12. And so they have like reproduction of that stuff. It's pretty cool.
Man, I wish I'd seen that.
And then here they've got laws from the A&E, other examples. Check out this one, Abu. If an upperclassman has blinded the eye of a son of the upper class, they shall blind his eye. If he has broken the bone of an upperclassman, they shall break his bone. If an upperclassman has knocked out the tooth of an upperclassman who is his equal, they shall knock out his tooth. So everyone should notice, this is fascinating. It's sort of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Was actually, which by the way, people like look at as negative. Lex talionis is actually fair because it's saying the punishment should fit the crime. But notice about other cultures besides the Israelite one, the way the law is distributed has to do with the class of the person being offended.
Almost like a caste system, almost like a West Asian caste system.
You don't see something like that in the scripture. I think that's important. If he's his equal, I think it's important to point that out. And then they also have this. I thought you would like this. This is something that I believe Jabari mentioned to us, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is. Gathering writings that teach wisdom was popular throughout the ancient Near East. In Egyptian texts, the instructions of Amenemo shows clear similarities with the section in the biblical book of Proverbs sharing sage advice. I remember I took a J-term class. A J-term class means it's done during January. So a lot of times I'll have a visiting professor come in. And he'll be from another seminary, maybe a bigger school, but he'll basically spend January with you. So it's like an intensive, accelerated thing. And the whole thing was on Proverbs. So we had to get into some of this. And it's a fascinating thing. So it's a reality. And I like how they're talking about it there. BK Apologist, who is the apologist who specializes in A&E, is in the chat and says, A&E, baby. Yerp. Whatever you... I mean, you didn't even see any of this, though.
Indeed. I'm sorry to say I missed it. Yeah, but although I'm glad I'm experiencing it vicariously through your Instagram page here.
Well, yeah, they even give an example. Proverbs 22:17. Incline your ear and listen to the words of sages. Pay attention to my wisdom. And they give an example that's very similar there, so you can actually see what they're talking about. So this place is just cool, man. There's like so much there. And then check this out. I like how they've got it like highlighted out here. Look at this. The Canaan has been plundered into every sort of woe. Ascalon has been overcome. Gezer has been captured. Elman is made non-existent. And most people know this one. Israel is laid waste. His seed is no longer. All lands combined, they are at peace. Whoever roams about gets subdued by the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. And that's from the Meretha Stele, lines 25 through 28. Anything to comment on there? I mean,
No,
this
no,
is
sir. But very impressive, though, indeed.
I mean, this basically, just so everyone understands, this again is outside, non biblical
Yeah,
corroboration of biblical
an ancient
reality.
Egyptian hieroglyphic reference to Israel. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also see the kind of hyperbole, the exaggeration. His seeds no longer. I mean, they didn't wipe out Israel, and then you also got there from Assyria. I tried to do a pano, it didn't turn out exactly well, and how it corroborates with Isaiah 37. But you can just tell from the panels and the pictures is really cool. And there's even a little kids section. I don't know if you saw this. But there's like a section in between floors, and they have like a little station with these little colorful mats, and you
No,
can
I
like
missed this.
you
This
can
is
do
interesting.
yeah you can do a cross from different traditions like a Roman Catholic, Ethiopic, their Orthodox cross, or you can do something from the Magna Carta, or from the Barren Shields, or you can write in Hebrew, which is what my oldest son chose to do, and he did a
Wow.
great job. And I got a funny friend from an Israeli, a guy who visits Israel who knows Hebrew, and he says Malachi has better handwriting than most Israelis because he saw Malachi's a finished product, which he did a very good job on. I thought maybe I can show you. Yeah, there it is. Can you see it?
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
I thought Malachi did a great job. I thought that was cool. So
Definitely, 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 definitely.
so
That
yeah,
is
he
very cool.
wrote his name in Hebrew. Now here's the last. This is the last section right here. The last thing that I have, and then at the end, you kind of get into rushing. And so from some of the places you found the most exciting, I don't think, unfortunately, I have as much footage. And
I
stuff.
sent you two pictures to your Gmail. One
Okay.
of them, the one with the Hebrew text, is
All
what
right.
I really loved seeing it there. But anyway, go ahead.
No. After I go through these, I'll bring that up. Here's, I believe, an ancient Christian depiction of Jesus. Isn't that what that is? I believe that's what that is. Have you ever seen the first kind of some of the earliest depictions of Jesus? I believe that's one of them there. And then they get into the Greco-Roman world and the Gospels and the New Testament. And this is Jerome. They got a Jerome actor.
Love it. Love it. This is great. This is great. Jerome is such another. Oh man, Jerome is such an influential figure, within world history. So I love seeing him come up in so many places.
Let's see if I can get volume on this, Abu.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know if you can hear it.
I can't. I cannot. Even the United Nations, they have a translation contest, right? Because
Yeah.
there's multiple languages, official languages of the United Nations, and they have a translation contest where someone tries to show an example of like the beauty of translation, because even that's an art form, and they call it the Saint Jerome Translation Contest because even a secular
really?
organization like that, yeah, because he's such a he's an impressive figure. That to think that there was someone in the fourth century or the very early fifth century who was translating Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek texts into Latin, and his product is impressive. Even we don't have to consider it perfect, but to nonetheless think that it's pretty impressive to think that this man produced this.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think there was just one weird church that for a while did consider it perfect and consider it the official biblical translation, like it was holy.
I may
or
have heard of
something.
that church. I might be familiar with it.
Latin
Yeah.
Vulgate or something, but I don't know what happened. They changed on that or something. It was like weird, kind of a strange thing. But anyways, so I guess some people really were into it, like you were saying. So this
Well,
is
hey,
cool.
the King James onlyists. I think somebody's got to bring back Vulgate onlyism.
Yeah. So, well, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be someone from Rome. So
Yeah.
here's where they show an example of the printing press, and they got the little block letters out there, and they kind of show you how to do it. And they showed how they did like the color letters to begin the thing on each section. They got these giant leaves, and they got like what looks like spilled ink. So I told my son to touch it, and like they rub it over. It's just cool, man. I don't know if you saw any of that, but they get into the actual production of the Bible. It's a museum of the Bible. What do you expect? And then there's all these old Bibles they had everywhere. Like they had Martin Luther's German translation, and that wasn't a reproduction. They actually had one of the copies, So it was like,
Yes.
yeah, some. And I challenged my kids to try to read the Old English, try
Yeah,
to
at
read.
this point, you're on the fourth floor. You're definitely on the fourth floor at this point.
Yeah. So that was fun. That was cool, to see that. And he tried
By
to
the
read.
way,
Yeah.
transitioning from Jerome to Martin Luther, Luther in his writings, when he talked about the canon of the Bible and why he rejected, certain texts that the Catholics recognized as Old Testament, but, are called Apocrypha, he often explicitly appealed to Jerome. He would explicitly say that, these people need to submit to the correction of Jerome,
These people.
You know, the people who are affirming the quote unquote the Deuterocanonicals, or what's called the Apocrypha. You know.
No, I like it. I like Martin Luther saying these people in reference to
Yeah,
Catholics.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you say that in German. Das people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Das Volk.
Das Volks. Das Volks. Das Volks. Yeah, so check this out. We got the Rosetta Stone here. I mean, obviously it's not the Rosetta Stone, everybody, but I like how they had that. And the Rosetta Stone, very important because it was like the final key to crack the code of basically hieroglyphs. That's I mean, that's what it's about. It's got, I think, like it's got Greek, it's got Coptic, I believe, and it's got hieroglyphs, and it's all three translated, some proclamation or whatever. And so that was gave us the final ability to say, oh, now we can do this, because the Egyptians had forgot basically how to do it at that time. I mean, what do you want to say about that? And it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. It's just discovered by Napoleon's troops since I think 1799. You know, he goes in there, and
the thing is, Napoleon, you know, aside from conquering Egypt with a modern army, he also brought in a veritable army of, you know, of scholars, basically, of linguists and what do you call, you know, anthropologists, and, you know, and so on down the line, you know, archaeologists. He brought in this massive team of scholars and experts along with his modern army, and that's why, you know, the field of like Egyptology, you know, exploded after Napoleon's conquest, his very short-lived conquest of Egypt.
Yes, and to the detriment of the Latter-day Saint Church, because Joseph Smith bought some sarcophagus text from a antiquities dealer who was roaming about the Midwest in Kirtland, Ohio, and he did not know at that time that basically they were cracking the code at that time. I think it had already been completed about how to translate Egyptian properly, ancient Egyptian properly, and so he
tried to bluff.
He gets it, and you can see these facsimiles that he had, and he turns it into a scene with Abraham about to sacrifice Isaac, when it's like Horus and Isis and Osiris stuff happening, and tries to translate it in what it's called the Book of Abraham, and the fascinating thing is later on we were able to recover what Joseph Smith bought for a hefty sum, I might add, and it basically showed that he does not have translation abilities, and then that calls the whole Book of Mormon into question. Anyways, I just thought I'd share.
So you're saying you have doubts about the seer stones?
Well, yes, I do, and
you might have a little bit of a doubt.
Most modern Mormon apologetics go, well, he wasn't really translating the facsimile. Inspired him to write this document, but when you look, he refers to it as translation, and the work is translation. It's not something that inspires him to write something totally unrelated, which doesn't even make sense. Why would you need it if that's the case? And the other thing they try to do is say, no, those are burned up in a fire, we don't actually have the right documents. Anyways, different era there. They have some crosses there, and Ethiopic Bibles. Do you remember that section?
Yes, I love this. This section here, it had a long row of different Bibles from different churches, and it would even discuss their different canons, and it would show these translations. It would show like a Syriac translation next to a Ge'ez translation next to, you know, or maybe it was Amharic, you know, next to a Coptic translation. It was, I found that I enjoyed that immensely.
Ethiopic Bibles, handmade Bibles, preserved tradition. These beautiful manuscripts represent the continuing Ethiopic tradition of hand-copied Bibles filled with colorful illustrations. Most contain only a single book rather than a complete Bible. Written in the ancient language of Ge'ez, something you're into, these biblical texts are now used only in worship. Commentaries use the modern language of the region, Amharic. Other traditional aspects, such as the binding of hymns alongside psalms and the inclusion of liturgical prayers and large illustrations, are reminiscent of features long ago eliminated from printed Bibles. And I thought that was pretty cool. Wait, I didn't actually show the video enough. So you can see how they have some representation from the Ethiopic and church.
Quite a bit. Certainly of their iconography. And up on the fourth floor, some Ge'ez text and also some Amharic text.
And I appreciated that. I was glad that they did that. I thought that was important. And they had these hand crosses that were, of different materials, wood and metal, as well as some Gospel of John translation. And what about this? Do you see what's before you now? Did you?
some icons on wood, if I'm not mistaken. I think what do you
Yeah.
call these diptych or something like that. I don't know.
Triptych,
Cryptich.
triptych,
Thank you. Sorry
and
about that.
with
Yes,
Virgin and Child. Pendant triptych icon with a
yeah.
covenant of mercy.
They were even selling a brass reproduction, a brass reproduction of a sort of medieval version of that in the gift shop.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man, all right. Psalter with Miriam, Psalter with Canticles, all from Ethiopia. So this is
Mm,
like pretty fascinating. There's a
there you go.
gospel book,
Yeah.
manuscript on parchment and Gez. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And then this is towards the end, I think, of that floor. Oh, do you remember this? All those rolls
Yeah.
of the. Well, that was
Yep.
just wasn't that just showing different types of Torah scrolls? I was like
Yes.
amazed by these little houses for some of
But
them.
it was still interesting because they would have Sephardic Torah scrolls and Ashkenazi Torah scrolls, and it was nice to
Oh,
see some of the differences. My wife and I really enjoyed that section.
yeah.
You know.
Did you see the section with the Samaritan Pentateuch?
Yes. Yes.
And it
I
talked.
love that topic as well. That is a fascinating topic.
Yeah, and how they put Mount Gerizim instead of Sinai.
Exactly. Yep.
And
And
it's,
their script is interesting too because some people are into the Phoenician script, the so-called Paleo Hebrew script. The Samaritan script is almost like a more ornate version of the Phoenician script. You know.
really, no, I don't know, but okay, interesting. That's why we have you on. And
Is this the Mesha Stele, the Moabite stone?
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
reproduction of that. Yeah.
yes, it is. I remember we had a number of conversations about that. I am
Mm,
Mesha, king of Moab. I built this high place for Chemosh, that's a Moabite god, by the way, everybody,
hmm
because he made me more victorious than all these kings, and because he caused me to dominate all my enemies. Omri was king of Israel. So this is
hmm
important. You have a Moabite reference to Omri. It's funny, some of the kings mainly noted in non-biblical sources are like some of the more wicked ones, like Omri, you know. And for many days he subjugated Moab because Chemosh was angry with his land. So, you know, the God was mad at them, and that's what happened. Omri had conquered all the land of Medaba, but Chemosh returned it in my day. I took the vessels of Yahweh, the Lord, and I dragged them
hmm
before Chemosh.
And it literally has the
Fascinating.
tetragrammaton. It literally has the tetragrammaton in the text. This text that was a Moabite text, not an Israelite text. Yeah, it's very interesting. You know,
Fascinating,
like
bro.
an ancient polemic, and it's written in the Phoenician script again, the so-called Paleo Hebrew script.
So fascinating.
Agreed.
And people that like, oh, Yahweh's not. I mean, what do they do with stuff like this? You know, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting that for those those few people who try to polemicize against the Tetragrammaton, it's interesting to see that when you have an ancient polemic against the Israelites, and it's clearly recognizes that the Tetragrammaton is a reference to the Israelite deity. You know,
yep,
a polemic against the Israelites winds up turning into a polemic against the Tetragrammaton as well.
yes. Which makes me wonder, people who now make polemics against the Tetragrammaton, maybe they're
There's a Moabite spirit,
well,
unwitting.
that'd be the nice way to say it. But it's funny, if you're a one Wester, everybody, you think the person writing this is Proto-Chinese, because you have to be think
Yes.
according to the nation's breakdown of area or whoever made it up, that Moabites are actually Chinese. So there you go. It's just funny. They're like, oh, fair-skinned people can't survive in the deserts of, the Middle East and stuff like that. And they don't use the Middle East, but you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, but then there's Edomites and Asians, and they all live right there too. Okay,
hmm
and not sure which way we're going to go with that, I see. So this is all stuff at the Museum of the Bible. I mean, you can tell this is quite extensive. This place
Yeah,
is
it's beautiful.
amazing. And I think that's all my pictures. But now let's get some of your final commentary, and I'll bring up your pictures.
Yeah, I
Just
only
give
sent
me
you
a
two
s-
pictures, and only one of them is really relevant. It's the one with the Hebrew text. I really, really enjoyed seeing this. It's it was they had Saadia Gaon's version of the Torah, where what he did was, he had the biblical Hebrew text in the center. He had Targum Onkelos, which is the ancient Jewish Aramaic translation of the Torah, on the left, and then on the right he does his own Arabic translation, Judeo-Arabic, where it's written Arabic written in the Hebrew characters, and so he calls it his tafsir. You know, like in the Islamic world, you know, a tafsir is like a commentary. That's it. Yes, this item. If you could zoom in on that. So again, it's the so this was a sort of like a leaf from Saadia Gaon's version of the Torah. You have the biblical text in the center. On the left is the ancient Aramaic translation, and then, excuse me, on the left is the ancient Jewish Aramaic translation of Onkelos, and then on the right is Saadia Gaon's tafsir, which it was a translation and a commentary at the same time. Like his own sort of commentary is sort of mixed in to his translation, which is also the case with the Aramaic translation on the left-hand side. But the other thing that I loved about this is that this is a trilingual text. You know, if you go from left to right, you have Aramaic, Hebrew, and then Arabic, but it's all written in the Hebrew script. And I think that's helpful for, you know, for some of the discussions we have with certain people, because there are people out there who believe that you can just identify a language just by pointing to the script. Like they'll point to the, you know, the standard Hebrew script and say, oh, that's Yiddish. You know, there's certain people who they prefer the Phoenician script, what they call the Paleo Hebrew script. So when they see what's the now standard Hebrew script, the Ashuri script, they go, oh, that's just Yiddish. But the truth is that this is a great example of how you cannot determine a language just by pointing to the script, because you have 3 languages on the page and they're all written in the Hebrew script. Even the Arabic is written in the Hebrew script. And if I could just touch on one thing, you know,
by the way, everyone, he's talking about one Westers mainly who.
Yes, certain one Westers, they do that.
By the way, people also, Ramon the Large likes your phrase, a Moabite spirit. And Jonathan Soko says, I had some Moabite food for dinner. It was great. So shout out to everybody who's in on this with us. All right, go ahead, bro.
So see, I feel like quoting Moabite is my watch pot, right?
Yeah, the classic.
So one final thing, because the Arabic definite article is al, right? Like, you know, like al-Quran or something like that, you know, whatever the case.
Al-Qaeda,
Al-Qaeda, right? Yeah, exactly.
The base.
So that AL is the definite article. Naturally, if you're writing Hebrew, Arab, excuse me?
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
I was going to say, if you're writing Arabic in the Hebrew script, because the definite article is constantly coming up, you're going to have to write alif lamed, alif lamed, alif lamed. So certain writers like Saadia Gaon used a special Hebrew character that was created for that function. It was a combination of alif and lamed, a special ligature that was the 2 characters combined, and that appears in that text. It's hard to see in this picture, but it's right there in the upper right hand at the very top right corner, and it appears several other times in that column. It's like a special Hebrew character to signify the Arabic definite article. It's great stuff.
Dope, man. That's what's cool too. Like, I like hearing your perspective and different people's perspective. Everybody catches different things. Like, I would love to go to this. That's why, like, when you called, I was like, oh man, it'd be so dope to actually go to this with you, because the stuff you could talk about and point out would be so epic. Now I've got your other picture up on the screen. So
this is from the first floor. I don't know if you got to see on the aside from the gift shop on the first floor, they also have a section that's sort of relevant to the Vatican Library, and you know, some of the more beautiful works that they have. So this was like if I recall correctly, this was an illuminated gospel from like the 11th century. You know, that's it's a reproduction of something that exists at the Vatican Library. You know, and it's interesting to see how like colorful and how much detail has gone into this. You know. And that's all. I mean, it was the first picture was the one I think is more significant and more impressive. But I found this at least visually stunning, you know, to think that 1,000 years ago someone sat down and did this, you know.
Yeah, no, dope. I'm glad you got this stuff, because actually the stuff you're talking about on the actual first floor, I did not see. The only thing I got to see on the first floor really was the cafe and the gift shop. And the gift shop there was pretty cool. They had some good books and really unique items there.
Like, I got to ask you a question.
There's a couple.
Ask you a question.
Yeah.
Before you went, I texted you and encouraged you to get a facsimile Geneva Bible. Did you do it, or was
no?
Did you skip it?
I didn't.
I'm gonna try and get you one for Christmas or something. I'm gonna save up.
I don't celebrate pagan holidays, so.
But you know. I'll get you. I'll send you one in late December for no reason whatsoever.
I got you. I appreciate that. No, you know, it's funny you said that. I had a Jehovah's Witness friend. Well, I had a bunch growing up though in Columbus. And one of my buddies, Dante Tate, I'll never forget him. he was telling me, he would explain to me Jehovah's Witness theology. You know, I'm in fourth grade at the time, right? And to those in Columbus, like if she's Michelle Miller, know who I'm talking about. Dante's uncle was Archie Griffin, Ohio State kind of well-known, famous a player that won the Heisman. Anyways, and so Dante was telling me about this, and it was like the funniest thing because he was like, well, yeah, so we don't celebrate it, but like a lot of times just like around December, we kind of get some gifts and stuff. And like we can't celebrate it. We don't celebrate our birthday, but like kind of around when your birthday is, you know, your family will, you know, kind of buy things, but don't really say
They'll step it up a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying all Jehovah's Witnesses did this or anything. I'm just saying it was just funny the way he described it to me. And I appreciated the spirit of it. He's like, you know, you might happen to get a video game system. Like,
hey, that's a testament to how it's hard to resist the influence of the surrounding culture. That's like, you know, it doesn't happen much anymore, but that was like the whole thing with Jews and the Hanukkah bush. You know, like so many Jewish families, secular Jewish families, had kids that wanted to get Christmas trees, and some people gave in. And so, you know, around the time of Hanukkah, they'd get a little evergreen and they'd call it a Hanukkah bush. You know, because the kids wanted that. Or another example that I've seen, certain masajids, certain mosques. You know, so many of the kids in Muslim families growing up in the United States, they're fascinated by their friends celebrating Halloween. So what they do is like certain mosques on October 31st will hold like a Halloween event.
What?
Where they give the kids,
it's called Halloween?
Yes, they'll give the kids candy and they'll, you know, teach them about Islam and stuff like that. And they try to sort of, you know, as a way to like give the kids what they want, because really they just want the candy. Yeah, but then at the same time try to separate them from Halloween, you know?
The fact that it's called Halloween has totally made my night.
Yeah, Google Halloween, yes. You'll get a lot of examples of that.
So, you know, it's funny, like the Mormons, they do trunk or treat, where they pull up to the ward. They pull up to the ward, and all the Mormon moms put a bunch of goodies in their trunks of their cars, and they all pop the trunk at the same time, and then the kids go around to all the trunks in the parking lot of the ward, right? And so they have their own way to spin it, which I think is kind of a cool idea. I like the trunk or treat idea, because I bet those Mormon moms hook up the candy like it's the bomb. Like and then as a Christian growing up, we would do harvest festivals. So it'd be like, you know, time to thank God, but it'd be like right around Halloween, and then every now and then I had some buddies who would be involved with hell houses, and that's where they scare you with like horror, like things like
reproductions of what damnation will be like.
Yeah, yeah. And I had a buddy who was at one of those, so I had never been to one. Right, it's not something that the churches I was involved with did, but my buddy was in one, so I went, and he comes up to me and my friend in the line. And he's like all bloody. It's like the weirdest. He like takes his like gear off, and he's all beat up because he was like a guy who died or something. Anyways, fascinating stuff there. But now I'm a good old Calvinist. I just don't know why all of us don't do Reformation Day stuff. And I bring that full circle. I can understand why you don't do it, you know, bad memories there. But bring it full circle, I went into the gift shop, and then the only thing I really remember, I got two things, one for myself and one for my son that I can remember at the gift shop in particular, because I was flying back, so I could only take limited stuff. I got a Luther Reformation comic. And I've been going through it, and it's really good. It's so dope. It's got humor and everything, and I love it. It's something dedicated to Luther should. And then my son was obsessed with the idea of, they had like a Charlemagne's sword, but it was like a small little like penknife thing, and so he wanted this little sword so bad, so he got that's what he got. And I can't remember, there's some other stuff, but anyways, the gift shop was cool. Yes, I didn't think the price I didn't think the prices were too bad for a gift shop. Usually they really gouge at those places. I thought it was like, so everything, and there's a little cafe over to the side my uncle grabbed some coffee at, but he took too long, so we just left him. He caught up with us later. The coffee gave him a pep in the step. We had a large group. We actually had the group price, because there was like 10 or 15 of us from our family that went. Because I told my mom, I was like, I just want to go to this. It looks cool, and no one knew what it was. But once they saw it, they're like, hey, we're in. So we got the discount prices for having a group rate, which is cool. So I encourage everyone to go. Bring as many people as you can. You won't regret it. my thing is to say this before you do anything in DC. If you're in DC, do this first. I
Agreed.
got to see the Lincoln and the Washington, and they're cool. Praise God, you know, America, da da da. Da. But I'm telling you, man, nothing was like the Museum of the Bible, and it's only in DC, so you've got to go. It's 6 floors. I guess the top floor used to be a whole cafe where they had like biblical themed food, right? Museum of the Bible makes sense, but I guess now it's essentially a view of the city because COVID kind of shut it down, and they're going to try to open up back later. But it was like more extensive than the smaller cafe, which is kind of located in between the first and second floors. But this place is great. You will not be disappointed. I want to go back. I can't sing its praises high enough.
Same
And
here.
yeah, seriously. So I'm with you 100%. And it's just so bizarre that you literally went there the day before I did. Neither of us live in DC. You call me like, "Is it true you're in DC?" I'm like, "What?" And you had went the day before, and then we went the day after. It's so crazy. And now here we are talking about it. So Miss Titus 2's in the house. She says those hell houses are scary as hell, or so I've heard. Everyone subscribe to Miss Titus 2's channel. She does some great work as well. So anything else to add, bro? Because I'm about to shut this bad boy down. I appreciate you doing it so late. And sorry, everyone, that the Ruth 4 live stream didn't work out. The internet at the place I was at failed, and so I couldn't be live. So I went live on IG, and that was just on my phone. But the video it was done, and I'm going to upload it later, so you still won't miss it. So just look for that on the channel as soon as I get a hold of that video about the Ruth 4 Bible study. And, oh, Abu, guess what I'm going to do tomorrow, bro?
I'm listening.
I got a guy on, and we're going to talk about the orthosphere, ortho bros.
So talking about Orthodox on social media, this kind of thing.
See,
Young men who are into
yes.
polemics.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm glad you got what the show's about. So
Yeah.
we wanted to do a different kind of show that's sort of an introduction to the strange online world that a lot of people don't know exists, that I recently was confronted with in a very interesting way. And so that's what we're going to talk about, sort of as an introduction to that. And then Friday, I'm trying to get back on with Adiala, and I'm trying
Nice.
to, yeah.
Shout out to Adiala. I like Adiala a lot. He's an interesting gentleman.
Yeah, he is, and that'll be interesting. And I'm trying to do something else with Shabar, but I don't know what's going to happen. So everyone just stay tuned this weekend. We'll see what pops off. Lots of stuff to discover. And I want to do another show on my trip to the Holocaust Museum there in D.C. Now, Abu didn't go to that. I went to that, but I've got everything posted from it on my Instagram, so you get an idea. And I also want to do a show on that if I can, so I'm working on that as well. Why it's fresh, and I think that'd be important and interesting. So that's what's up. Shout out to everybody. Ramon the Large says, "Yo, Vocab, can you repost that Prophet Yahweh UFO video? That was comedy gold."
I think I was on that. Yeah.
You were. That's funny. It's weird that video pops up from time to time where people talk about it and they're like, "Hey, what happened to this guy?" Anyways, well, thank you, Abu, again. I'm about to end this. All right. Shout out to everybody. Street Apologies is out. Come join us hopefully tomorrow by God's grace. This is the show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. And you know what else we do? We make apologetics fun again. That's right.